All right, guys, welcome back here at Southeastern 14 with Brian Edwards. Once again, our weekly discussion looking at SEC football betting. And real quickly before we hop in, as always, be sure to reach out if you want to help sponsor or advertise on the show. You see the email there at the bottom, caroline.smith at southeastern14.com. Reach out to her. And yeah, let's talk about advertising or sponsoring the show. We'll talk about our other sponsor, CHOMPS, here in just a bit. But we appreciate you guys, as always, reaching out to help us out here. Do more of these shows with Brian, do more shows on the channel. So we do appreciate that. But let's jump into the betting, Brian. Fun slate here. We've got all kinds of SEC matchups. The ones we like here, slates that are nothing but SEC games. And that's what we have, 7 games on the schedule. I know there are certain ones that you're kind of identifying as games you are betting on. Others we'll talk about kind of in less detail, ones that maybe you have some leans on or no plays on just yet. And we'll look ahead to the lines for next week as well. But all right, Brian, let's start with one game I know you are betting on, already have, and that is going to be the showdown in Arlington with Arkansas and Texas A&M. Feels like it's always a wild game between these two teams. I know last year's game, very interesting in terms of how it played out, but the Hogs, 7-point underdogs in this one. I think it's moved down a little bit since then. I know you liked it there when you bet it at 7, but Hogs and Aggies, of course, the big news of the week for either team involving Connor Wegman out for the season. Max Johnson going to be the guy moving forward for the Aggies.
Yeah, not a bad plan B. I've always
Yeah.
been consistent on Max Johnson. He is an above average SEC quarterback. I don't think he'll ever be elite, but and he's not gonna get you beat. And for a backup QB to have a 42-7 career TDINT ratio is pretty doggone good. But I do like Arkansas, as you noted. I've got it +7. So the number is 6.5 at most books right now. I would buy that half point to the key number of 7. And like Blake noted, just some wild games out at Jerry World. Seemingly every year in Arkansas seemingly creates a new way to lose every year. And last year was just the topper. The KJ fumble, the return for like 20 yards, and then the I think the other DB more just like took it from him, and then he rumbles the other way, 13-point swing, and I say that because A&M missed the extra point, and then Cam Little's field goal late hits the top of the crossbar, or I'm sorry, not the crossbar, the top of the goalpost. I don't think I'd ever seen one hit the exact top of the goalpost, and then I read a day later that NFL goalposts are 5 feet higher, so it would have been good on any college venue. But anyhow, so I wrote down last Saturday night. I wrote down A&M -3 if Rocket Sanders plays and is close to 100%. I wrote down -5 without. I don't know that we know if he's playing or not. I feel like he's definitely going to dress out and warm up and see where they go from there. That's kind of my thinking right now. I've actually talked to a couple Arkansas media guys, and I got 2 completely different opinions. So,
Of course.
so that only confused me even more. So, but look, Dubinion looked good last week. He had 78 rushing yards on just 15 carries, and the freshman tight end Luke Haas, who was the prize of their recruiting class, this guy is legit. 2 touchdown catches last week, and he's now in 4 games, 15 receptions, 239 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Arkansas under Sam Pittman has been an underdog 21 times, and they are 14-6-1 against the spread. And although A&M has won 10 of the last 11 head-to-head meetings, only 2 of those last 9 wins have been by a margin of 7 or more. So no reason to think we won't get another very close 1-possession game. And with that in mind, I'm on Arkansas again by the half point from 6.5 to 7. If you didn't get 7 early in the week like I did, and not against a little baby play of the Hogs plus 200 on the money line, but obviously at least 75 to 80% of what you're risking on this game, I would do on the Hogs plus the 7.
Yeah, should be interesting. Like you said, always it's just always entertaining this game. And I don't think it's going to let anyone down. again this season, given kind of where both teams are at heading into it. All right, let's talk about this South Carolina-Tennessee game, which I know a little bit more interesting depending on who plays, who doesn't play. Tennessee, a couple injuries I know you're going to note on that front potentially that can impact this, but the Gamecocks are, less than a couple touchdown underdog here, 12 and a half is the number. You like the South Carolina team heading into the revenge game for Tennessee here in terms of covering this number in Knoxville.
Yeah, I think the revenge factor has been way over accounted for in the line. I actually made Tennessee a 5.5 point favorite in this game. And all my other SEC numbers were within 1.5 points or less. And I'm 7 points off on this one. But this is what I love. I love when that happens. And it means I love South Carolina. And then that was before I find out Jalen Wright, Tennessee's leading rusher with 45 carries for 312 yards of 6.9 yards per carry average. He's going to be a game time decision, as is Ramel Keaton, who leads them in receiving yards with 205 yards on 12 receptions and 3 touchdowns. So, I mean, I liked it anyway. And the main reason I like it, well, I mainly want to talk about Spencer Rattler, but before I forget, let me give you this one stat. In the last 13 head-to-head meetings between these teams, Tennessee has beaten South Carolina by more than 4 points only twice. And they would have to beat them, by 8.5 plus the 4, or I guess they would have to do +9. They have to win by 13 to beat us, because I got 12.5. Rattler's just playing spectacular. I don't know I mean, I'm not saying he's going to get drafted higher, but I just don't know if there's been a quarterback in the month of September that I think has been better than Spencer Rattler. I don't think there is. 18 of 20 last week, 288 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. And let's not forget, he basically has no running game, and it's not like the offensive line is elite whatsoever. Yeah. I mean, it's probably a little below average. And he also had 43 rushing yards on 8 attempts. And, they obviously missed Juice Wells, but, man, Xavier Legette is just, stepping up in a big way. So he catches 5 balls last week for 189 yards and 2 touchdowns. And now in 4 games, he's got 27 receptions, 556 yards, and 3 tutties. And Rattler's completing 74.2% of his passes. And look, the Roadrunners, who Tennessee beat handily last week, were without their all-time leading passer, Frank Harris, without their best wide receiver in DeCorian Clark. Tennessee's really only played one decent team in Florida, and they lost by double digits. I know they've got the revenge angle, but they're also facing Spencer Rattler, who, how many did he have? 6 or 7 touchdown passes in that game last year? It was a lot.
It was a lot.
It was a lot. And he's playing better now than he was at that point. So give me the Gamecocks plus the 12 or 12.5.
Yeah, I'm gonna find here's his numbers for this season. You pointed out a couple of them, but it's like 95 completions, 128 attempts, 74.2% completion percentage, as you noted, 1,242 yards, 7 touchdowns, couple interceptions. Of course, the unfortunate note, if you're looking for a trend in the wrong direction, he's already gotten sacked 16 times this season. He got sacked 31 times last season, so already halfway there. Only 4 games in, so that is something definitely of note. That I think you look at just kind of where that sits. But I'm trying to find the numbers from last season. I don't know why I can't pull it up right now, but I am going to find it on what he did against Tennessee last year. And I know South Carolina fans probably have it burned in their memory right now. I know Tennessee fans probably have it burned in their memory right now. But
I actually have it.
You've got it. Okay.
30 of 37, 438 yards. It was only 6 touchdowns.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Only 6 and no interceptions.
No interceptions. It was quite a performance, of course. Yeah, 63-38 last season. That was, one of those games that, again, I don't think either fan base is going to forget anytime soon, unless Tennessee comes out here and really takes care of business in the Vols. As we've said, revenge on the mind. We'll see how far that can take them against a South Carolina team that, again, saw how they played at Georgia. Have done a lot of good things since that North Carolina game. So we'll see what happens there in that matchup. All right. Those are the two solid picks. I know you've got some thoughts on some of these other games. So let's go to Georgia, who is going to travel to Auburn. That's a 3:30 p.m. Eastern kickoff on CBS. I know you mentioned in your notes to me you have a lean on this game. Not completely sold, maybe one way or the other, but I'm curious to see which way you're going to lean here because I've looked at this game and it is one where I think, to me, it's very clear. If Auburn's going to win this thing cannot be a shootout. They cannot have this as a high scoring type game because the passing game, I just don't think supports it. If you look at the strength of Auburn's offense, the running game, Georgia's pretty good at stopping the run and the ability, to kind of slow down opponents on that. So I don't know. I just, here's my thing on this one, Brian. I look at Auburn. I just try to find a way for them to keep up offensively with the passing game, knowing that Georgia is a team that, again, the schedule has been what it is, but I still think that Georgia defense is pretty remarkable at times. And I just feel like putting a lot of pressure potentially on Peyton Thorne and company here to deliver through the air. They're going to be stacking everything possible to make Jarquez Hunter beat them. But curious to see which way you're leaning here.
Well, it's a definite lean to Georgia. Right now, most books are at 14.5, but it looks like DraftKings and Caesars have it at 14. I haven't played it yet. I might play it, and I would only play it at 14. Now, I would, if it's 14.5, I could pay the minus 120 juice and buy it to 14. But let's say it drifts up to 15.5, which would not surprise me at all between now and kickoff. We've got a good, 48 hours, or when, I don't know what, this game starts, 3:30 Eastern kick.
Afternoon, yeah.
Yeah. So right at about 48 hours. So, like you laid out, I just don't see where Auburn gets much offense in this game. I mean, they were abysmal offensively against Cal. I didn't really watch much. I was dialed into other games during that noon slot last week. But I, obviously looked at the box score, and Auburn's only touchdown was a defensive touchdown. I mean, you got to think at some point Hugh Freeze is too good of an offensive coach for them not to get some things going. But I don't know that Georgia's defense is exactly what the doctor ordered to get right for Auburn offense that is struggling. The only thing that just kind of, makes me hesitate is just Jordan Hare is just such a wild venue, and you just, crazy things happen there quite often. Now, more so, it tends to happen to Florida or Alabama, but of course there was the game with Nick Marshall, where two Georgia guys tipped it, and then all of a sudden it just fell in the air to the Auburn receiver on like a 4th and 18 play. Obviously that a decade ago. I think it was a decade ago, but yeah, it has been a minute. But you just have some wild results at Jordan Hare. So, Georgia or pass for me, and I might be on Georgia. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a lot of confidence. Probably Auburn scoring wise, and look, Georgia hasn't been perfect either. But
No.
that's the thing is and we've seen some of these games. We've seen the Missouri game last year. We've seen the South Carolina game for a half or so this year. It's not like Georgia's been completely invincible in terms of performance. Now they've won all these games, but I would want to see it more from Auburn here in the passing game, especially. Just before I would probably fully buy into the fact that Auburn, they're going to have to make this a grind. Like I said, it's got to be low scoring, I think, for them to have a chance and really grind things out, which could happen if you just run the ball and keep it away from Georgia. That's the formula for success, I think, here. So, all right, let's go to another game here with Missouri and Vanderbilt, another one that is big for, multiple reasons here. I think for Missouri, we're all kind of looking ahead to a potential 5-0 Missouri hosting LSU next week in Columbia, which would be just, the next biggest game of Eli Drinkwitz's career at Missouri so far after the probably Kansas State game and on to this next one. If they can get this win at Vanderbilt, a team that has been reeling, has lost 3 straight, giving up points left and right, still got some studs offensively, I think, especially those top 3 wide receivers. Quarterback position, we'll see what that looks like in this game. But man, this is, we said this last week after the Kansas State game. Like, boy, that Memphis game feels like one where it's just the ultimate letdown spot for Missouri. They wind up winning the game. Now they go on the road to a team that I think is just kind of in desperation mode at this point. Um, I think Missouri is just a more complete team here, but that's a lot of points for a Missouri team that's let a lot of people hang around this season, Brian. So I don't know about this one. This is one I'm not too sure on.
Yeah, so Vandy under Clark Lee as a home underdog 11 times, 3-8 against the spread. Now, in this specific rivalry, Mizzou Vandy, 7 of the last 9 games have been decided by 10 points or fewer. So that stat would bode well for Vandy's chances here. And in the last 11 head-to-head, Missouri's 8-3 straight up, but only 4-7 against the spread. So Vandy's covered more often than not at a 7-4 clip. So I saw earlier, as you mentioned, the top 3 receivers, and obviously Will Shepherd and Jaden McGowan being 2 of them, and the true freshman London Humphreys, who's got 12 receptions, 299 yards, 3 touchdowns. He is questionable. Clark Lee said earlier today that AJ Swan is a game time decision with an elbow injury, but there seems to be some smoke out there that it might be Ken Seals, perhaps regardless. And, he played a lot his first 2 years, not so much the last 2 years, but in some backup duty this year, 7 of 11, 96 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. So there's only one team in the country that's 0-5 against the spread. That is Vandy. There are not many teams in the country that don't have an under yet this year, but Vandy, let's see, Buffalo, LSU, and Boston College are 4-0 to the over. Vandy is 4-0-1. So they're one of just 4 teams that have yet to see an under. And that total 54.5 at most books. I know we talked about it off the air Tuesday. Multiple like college football injury / fantasy Twitter accounts. Just it popped that Brady Cook and Luther Burden were questionable, but now I've looked on multiple injury reports. Neither one of them are listed. I did a Twitter search on both guys, and I did the latest, and there's nothing about Brady Cook and Luther Burden being injured since Tuesday afternoon when those reports popped up. So I think they are fine. Um, I'm tempted to take the over. I just, I wonder, if Seals were to get hurt, is Swan, is he healthy enough to play? I mean, obviously, Mike Wright's long gone now. So I'm a little worried about the scoring from the Vandy point of view. Now, they certainly have 3 really good receivers, assuming Humphreys plays. And so anyway, it's a pass right now. But I don't know if the total were to dip, maybe I would think about it if it were to get to like 52 or so. But right now I'm a fence sitter and it's a pass for me.
All right. Thoughts on this Florida Kentucky game? Because I think this is one that I've gone back and forth on this. When I saw this line open, I want to say it opened, I don't know if it was
3.
1.5, 3. Was it 3? Okay. Okay. So maybe I saw it a little after. It was down to 2.5. I think it's bumped up to, there was 3 there for a time. Now is it 1.5 now?
Well,
Or is it?
it's mostly 1,
Yeah.
and I saw Circa. Yeah, Circa is still at pick, but everybody else seems to be at 1, with a total of 45. So the Gators had won 31 in a row over Kentucky, but if Kentucky wins Saturday, that would be their 3rd straight win over Florida, and it would be their 4th win in the last 6 head-to-head meetings. Now, when it's a 1-point spread, I really don't think that your stats as a home favorite or as an underdog are really that relevant, but I'll just throw them out anyway. So as a head coach, Billy Napier, 18-6-1 against the spread with 11 outright victories. Since 2019, Kentucky 15-9 against the spread, last 24 as a home uh, favorite. And Kentucky is 29-9 straight up, last 38 um, at home. The under is 3-0-1 for Florida. I will say Billy Napier is pretty trustworthy for for coaches in terms of putting out a depth chart, injury report, and it being accurate. Whereas Kyle Whittingham had us thinking Cam Rising was going to start against Florida a month ago, and Cam Rising still hasn't played yet. So
Yeah.
I think it's a good sign for Florida. Eugene Wilson listed as a starter, the freshman receiver who went out, I want to say late first, early second against Tennessee with a collarbone injury, missed last week's game. Apparently, he's going to play, as is our starting center, whose last name Blake is excellent at pronouncing.
Kingsley Egwukan.
Egwukan. There we go. Egwukan missed last week's game. He's only played once against Tennessee, but apparently he's playing this week. All of that is good news for the Gators. With all that said, I made Kentucky 3. It's down to 1. I slightly lean to Kentucky. Maybe it's an emotional hedge. I haven't bet Kentucky. I have done my contest where I have to pick 25 specific games, and I picked Kentucky. So I lean Kentucky, but I hope I'm wrong. But if any of our listeners tail me gambling wise, hope you win.
Listen, I was on Kentucky when it was 2.5. So now that it's moving down more, I feel better about this. But listen, if I'm betting against you, you're in good shape. So congratulations, Florida fans. You are probably doing quite well, which you're also doing quite well, Brian. This is, I mean, what better segue each week when we talk about our friends at Chomps here? Because I mean, every time we talk about the Florida game, we've got to bring up the huge Chomps logo because guys, I've been telling you about Chomps. They're one of our sponsors here at Southeastern 14, and just a great snack. We told you about it. Find it in the description. 15% off. You want to order some Chomps and really help us out at the channel. You get 15% off your first order. SC14 is the code. Again, just go to that description below. Check out all the information you need on Chomps. Great protein snack. They got a lot of different flavors. I've got a bunch in here in the cabinet. They all taste good. I'm telling you, as a protein guy, I love them. They're fantastic. So go check out our friends at Chomps, especially Gator fans. Come on, there's nothing else that you want other than the Chomps, right? So there you go. Our friends at Chomps. We appreciate them sponsoring the show and here at Southeastern 14. But all right, another SEC game. The only other one we haven't talked about yet, which this is another one. Or actually, is there two we haven't talked about yet?
Two.
Two. That's
LSU, Ole
right.
Miss, and Bama, Mississippi State.
LSU Ole Miss, another one with a very low spread here. I think this one LSU is still 2.5, most from what I'm seeing, favorites on the road, and this is one of those, Brian, that I want no part of when you have this kind of game. 2.5 is the number, not up to that key number at 3. I think if it got to Ole Miss +3, which it seems like it's moving in that direction, I could be wrong on that. I think the last time I checked, it was getting close. Don't know if it'll get there, but we still have a couple days. I would probably take a flyer on Ole Miss for the field goal because I don't. But then again, it's like that was a little deflating what we saw last week at Alabama. But this is a home game. LSU's not been the most consistent team. We kind of saw things play out against Arkansas last week. I still think LSU's the better team, but it's a tricky one, I think, here.
It is, and I made LSU -3 as it sits at 2.5. And right now, it is 2.5. But you might be onto something with it potentially trickling up to 3 because I see a couple of offshores have at least put a little extra juice on LSU. It's still 2.5, but they've got -115 juice, and actually DraftKings has got -112 juice. So the total is anywhere. I see a 66 at Caesars, but a 68 at the Westgate Super Book. So just some stats here. The over is 5-1 in the last 6 head-to-head meetings, but only 2 of those would have gone over 67. They had a 95 and a 101, but the other combined scores have been 65, 48, 61, and 64. Um, LSU has only been a road favorite 4 times under Brian Kelly. 1-3 against the spread, but 1-0 this year at Mississippi State. They were 0-3 ATS last year. As a home underdog under Lane Kiffin, Ole Miss is 3-2 against the spread with a 1 outright win. LSU is 6-1 straight up, 5-2 against the spread. The last 7 head-to-head meetings with the Rebels, and 4 of those wins have come by 16 points or more. But I am also kind of like you. Like if it were to move to 3 or even 3.5, although I doubt it would come off that key number, and I had confidence Trey Harris was going to be healthy, that might change some things, because you got to think Zachary Franklin and Prescorn are going to be a lot more healthy this week. They both played last week. They only had 1 catch apiece. But you would think that maybe both those guys would, more practices, more reps, more snaps. You would think, I'm guessing, obviously. And I'm not implying Lane would be on a hot seat, but I think this is an important game for Lane. He did a lot of things to piss off the Ole Miss brass and the fan base late last year. And I know they've had some injuries, but man, that game was right there for the taking last week. Alabama's offense was so bad in the first half. Ole Miss should have had that lead at halftime, and they just did not play very well. And I think this is a big game for Lane, and another one on deck. That's a big game with Arkansas next week. So it's a pass for me. So yeah, I just said a lot to say nothing. I'm a fence sitter.
Well, maybe you got more to say about Alabama, Mississippi State, because this is one, I think another interesting one. Alabama going on the road here, Mississippi State, came close to South Carolina, but still, this is one where I think, to me, Mississippi State's offense is still a work in progress. I feel like it's still kind of a mystery here. I don't know exactly what they're going to do game in and game out. But yeah, I mean, Alabama feels like it found something finally, just to, they lose a game last week. And like we said, sky's falling if they lose a game like that at home. But they find a way to win by a couple touchdowns. And now maybe that gives them the momentum they need to really kind of spring forward here. But again, this is one, too, I'd probably stay away from. Don't have a great feel on with this one, just because I still think it's fair to question Alabama's offense even after last week. So
no, that offense still has a long way to go, and it's just not wise to lay a lot of points with a team that's struggling offensively. It kind of reminds me of the Iowa game this week. I mean, they're playing Sparty, Michigan State, who should be at the top or toward the top of everybody's fade list right now. But just on principle, you can't lay double digits with Iowa and that pathetic offense. And I'm not. Pardon, Alabama fans, I'm not putting your offense in that level of the abyss by any stretch. I'm not trying to do that, but Alabama still is a work in progress offensively, to say the least. And Mississippi State, at least Will Rogers got going again last week. Now, another big factor in this game is Jo'quavious Marks, who I also did a Twitter search on earlier, and there's just nothing to be found whatsoever. But he's had a nice year, and he popped up as questionable either Monday or Tuesday, but there really hadn't been any word on it since then. But I want to point out on this game 2 main things. One, Mississippi State has been brutally bad as a home underdog lately. 1-8 against the spread their last 9 such spots, and Alabama has won 15 in a row over the Bulldogs, 11-4 against the spread in those 15 wins, and their last 5 wins have been by margins of 24, 40, 41, 31, and 24. So I think it's Alabama or pass, but again, I just can't lay points with Bama, or I can't lay more than 2 touchdowns with Bama struggling offensively. Now, in my contest where I have to pick 25, I did take Bama based on just their head-to-head domination lately. So if you could get 14, I guess I would offer a slight lean to Bama, but In terms of my money, cash money ducats, I'm not risking any on this one.
All right. Before we look ahead, we'll wrap up with our look ahead lines for week 6. Brian's got another play here, a nice, Friday night play. That's what we're looking for. We need more of those Friday night plays here in college football. You're going to go close your ears, Arkansas fans. BYU playing Cincinnati here, and this is one where the Bearcats favored by what is it? I think 1.5, 2, something like that. That's a Friday night matchup. I know you're going to the Cougars here, Brian. Who again, Arkansas fans, hold your ears here.
Yeah, so I liked BYU. I made BYU a 4.5 point favorite, and I saw it at 2.5 to 3, and I I didn't bet it right away. But I remember in my car on Tuesday, I was like, okay, when I get back to the house, I got to plug that in. I don't want to move over 3. I get back to the house and they're underdogs, and I'm like, what in the world's going on? I look for injuries, can't find anything. Turns out, I talked to a friend in Vegas that a pick service released the Bearcats as one of their plays, and this pick service apparently has a lot of subscribers and a lot of money came in on Cincinnati, and BYU was plus 2.5 at one point. Looks like there's been some action bringing it down, and right now, and it was 1.5, 2, like probably 2 hours ago, but right now most books are at 1. Even looks like one offshore is now at Pick'em. But again, I like to BYU at minus 2.5 or 3. They have won outright in their last 4 games as a home underdog. They are 19-3 straight up in their last 22 home games. BYU wins outright, as Blake noted, at Arkansas 2 weeks ago. Now they do lose 38-27 at Kansas last week, but that was a back-to-back road spot. Kansas is good, and Kansas scored 2 defensive touchdowns. So kind of a misleading final there. And who knows, without those 2 turnovers, who knows how that game would have turned out. But I think BYU is playing well, and Cincinnati on a short week of preparation is, flying across time zones and into altitude at an unfamiliar venue. I'm assuming Cincinnati has never played at BYU, or I don't think they've played their last couple decades at least. So I'm going to go with BYU plus the 1. Or again, if this line moves between now and Saturday, I would lay up to 3 with BYU against the Bearcats.
All right, we do now look ahead to week 6. We love these look ahead lines to see where everything stands on these. Georgia and Kentucky. Brian, looks like Georgia 21.5 on this one. LSU at Missouri. We talked about kind of the potential of Missouri still being unbeaten if they beat Vanderbilt this week. Hosting LSU minus 8. That number right now. Ole Miss minus 9.5 against Arkansas, and Alabama and Texas A&M. In other words, there's some huge games next week in terms of divisional race here. When you just think of the matchups, Alabama minus 3 at Texas A&M.
Yeah, so and it's also interesting. We can kind of compare these lines to what they were in August. So Alabama was 8.5 to A&M back in August, and we know, that Alabama has been downgraded significantly, and there's pointing to that. And that's with A&M going to a backup quarterback, although Max Johnson's pretty good for a backup, but a 5.5 point difference. In terms of the LSU being minus 8 at Missouri, I will point out that, like we saw a couple weeks ago against K-State, Eli Drinkwitz is good as a home underdog. In fact, 8 times at Mizzou, 6-2 against the spread with 5 outright wins as a home underdog. In terms of the Hogs, I think that number is pretty rich for Ole Miss. I would like the Hogs at 9.5. They are 7-3 against the spread in 10 games. The road underdog under Pittman. Pittman is 2-1 straight up, 3-0 against the spread against Kiffin. The only outright loss was that 52-51 thriller that was as good as any football game played in 2021 when Pittman went for 2 there in the last minute and they did not get it. And Correct. What I sent you from DraftKings is Georgia 21.5 to Kentucky, and that game was. I thought I had my doggone ringer off. Sorry. But that game was 23.5 in the summer as well. And then right as we were about to go on the air, I looked at FanDuel, and they are trying to match DraftKings with some look ahead lines, and they actually have Georgia at 23.5, like it was this summer against Kentucky, and they have a money line for Kentucky next week plus 980, and FanDuel actually is trying to see DraftKings look ahead lines and raise them because they added a few more in upcoming games. So we've got Alabama. This is all at FanDuel again. Alabama is 8.5 against Tennessee. That one's at Bryant Denny. And then Alabama is 6.5 to LSU. That also at Bryant Denny. And that line was 7 over the summer. And then Kentucky is +3 at Louisville in the regular season finale. What do they call? They call it the Governor's Cup, I think.
I think that's right.
Yeah, and Kentucky's +115 on the money line in that one. And just for those of you interested in big games, we've also got a couple more. FanDuel has Michigan -1.5 at Penn State and has Michigan -3.5 against Ohio State. So there we have some look ahead lines.
Colorado -1.5, or excuse me, that's 5.5 against Arizona State too. For all of you Coach Prime bettors out there, we know there's a lot of them. Every week you got to jump on board to bet for or against. Not gonna lie, Brian, I bet against them last week. I thought that number against Oregon was way too low, and turned out to be the case. So,
Good call by you. I was
yes.
on the other side and took that
Mm.
L, but it was one of those L's where mid late first quarter you knew it was coming. You didn't have to hang around for the
No,
carnage.
I did not. I like those kind because I either know I'm in or out, and that's it. So, anyways, all right. Before we finish here, actually going to throw one more thing. You mentioned this. I think it's interesting, and I think you may have put these out earlier in the week too. The updated odds to win the SEC East, the SEC West, and the SEC championship game. I know those have moved quite a bit over the past couple weeks, but curious to see where things are now.
Yeah. So, and I'm scrolling down to get them, and here they are. All righty. The updated odds to win the SEC West going into week 5. Bama is the even money favorite, +100. LSU +140. A&M +800 or 8-1. Ole Miss 16-1. Arkansas 30-1. Auburn 44-1. And Mississippi State 140-1. So the odds to win the East, and these are at FanDuel. Georgia -550. The Vols are +900 or 9-1. The Gators are 16-1. Mizzou 22-1. Kentucky 23-1. Gamecocks 150-1. Vandy 500 to 1. Now, I guess I was just wondering why Kentucky has got longer odds than Florida, but the fact that they're at home and only a 1-point favorite, okay, I guess I get
Yeah.
that. Yeah, and then the odds to prevail in Atlanta in the SEC championship game: Georgia -135, Bama +360, LSU +450, the Vols 19-1, A&M 25-1. Ole Miss and Florida are both 40-1. Kentucky 50-1, Missouri 60-1, Arkansas 120-1. The Gamecocks are 300-1, Vandy 500-1, and Mississippi State also 500-1 odds.
There you have it. There are the look ahead lines. We said to week 6. If you want to look ahead to the SEC championship game, you can do that. Get your bets in on that. But most importantly, the matchups for this week, and always great information as usual from Brian. So, Brian, anything you want to plug here before we hop off?
Oh, just I'll help you out. You won't have to say it. Go to that Southeastern 14 YouTube channel and make sure to hit subscribe. And I'm doing another segment that we started today that'll be up on the YouTube channel later with my buddy Jay Greason, as we also broke down some SEC gambling nuggets and had a few picks outside of the SEC as well. So Jay's a great guy, columnist for the Chattanooga Times Free Press. So feel free to check out that segment as well. And best of luck to everybody on the weekend. It should be a fun one. Got some really good games.
Yep, a lot of fun stuff on the schedule. So, as Brian said, check out everything here at Southeastern 14. Again, if you want to advertise or sponsor with us, caroline.smith, southeastern14.com. Got a lot of you guys reaching out. We appreciate that. Looking to add more sponsors here as we add more shows to the channel. You guys have seen an increase in that over the past month or so. So, a lot more to come here. And hey, basketball season will be here before you know it. You guys know I'll be talking basketball every day. That's just how it works here. Brian will be joining us today. He's looking at that. He's ready. He texted me. He said, "I've got this." He's ready to go too. So
I'm not ready. I'm not ready yet. I'm mostly football this week, but I'm going to be getting into it in the coming weeks.
I need a spread right now on Kentucky Gonzaga. I need it ready to go. So we'll get all that too. Brian will be helping us with basketball this season, so it'll be a lot of fun. So check it all out. It's again Southeastern 14. Hit the like button and the subscribe button. Always helps us out. We appreciate you guys watching as always, and we will talk to you again here soon at Southeastern 14.